Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to announce that the event will begin in a few minutes. I repeat, the event will begin in a few minutes.
For those of you who are still outside the hall, we invite all the audience to please take your seats as we will be starting momentarily. Thank you.
Lim Jokhoi, JOTK. Oh, no, oh, nama wakil kajian ini, boleh kajian ini. Dua mau bahaya kan dua kerja sama. Jok losik. JOT Lim Jokhoi. Nah iya, enak. Oh sudah monggo. Itu kita tahu Jek.
Oh, jadi gimana dulu? Apa dan berapa? Dengerin di mana ya? Oh, belum Jokowi. Nah, ini aja Korea. Kalau waktu di Bali kan katanya akhir Juli ya, itu kan pasti mau itu paling langsung dia dari udah gaji sih kamu sih. Kamu udah ini ya, udah usia ya, udah usianya. No. Pas aku join dia kosong. Terus pas setelah masuk aku langsung wawancara dia. Ya, ini ibu serius. Hobi dia doang gitu. Kalau di sana booming. Dok, siapa coba ini?
Iya, di Malaysia tuh.
Depan.
Boleh.
Stiker depan.
Dia benar dia bahasanya itu.
Masih nama hitam kan? Hah? Ini warna tuan.
Sudah
Udah ya?
sudah kumpul.
Ada warna pink dan hitam. Aku suka kombinasi hitam sama hitam. Itu kan lepas. Memperbajuin bahwa semua cewek tuh harus pakai baju satu tema aja gitu loh. Kalau itu kamu gimana? Tapi nggak ini dong, itu tuh kayak membatasi ekspresi orang. Kalau lo hitam aja doang gitu, atau warna pink pastel doang. Udah suka tuh kalau misalnya baju hitam mata sebenarnya itu jilbabnya tuh grafik. Bisa. Serius,
lama banget. Terus salah hotel.
Berapa jam berapa? Mandarin.
Makanya gue bilang kita nggak lihat tanah-tanah aja kan. Makan aja gue. Sana benar-benar semua lah pokoknya. Cuman tuh gue lihat itu udah distract kan gue kan. Iya. Gue tadi akhirnya cuma nyelamatin paspor gue. Karena yang surat-surat yang lain di kantor.
Untungnya kalau gue juga
orang-orang di kantor bawa pas-pas masuk nggak bawa apa lagi. Ya rumah cuma gitu cashier apa terus bulan depan dia lagi gak di rumah.
dia mulu ada
Nanti PB mau di mana?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we would like to announce that the event will begin shortly. I repeat, the event will begin shortly.
For those of you who are still outside the hall, we invite all the audience to please take your seats as we will be starting momentarily. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, and distinguished guests. It is our pleasure to welcome you to the policy speech by President José Ramos Horta, President of Timor-Leste.
My name is Ray.
And my name is Cindy, and we will be your masters of ceremony for today's event.
Before we start, we want to encourage all participants here to share your moments with us from this event by uploading them on your social media handles and tagging at FPCI.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite everyone to please stand up and give a warm welcome to President José Ramos Horta.
Assalamualaikum. Welcome, President Ramos Horta, along with the founder and chairman of Foreign Policy Minister of Indonesia, Dr. Dino Patti Djalal, and ministers of Timor-Leste.
We also want to give a warm welcome to all of our distinguished guests here with us today. We have people ranging from ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, celebrities, academics, students, paskibraka, and journalists. Welcome to everybody.
Everyone, please give a big round of applause. We would also like to thank Angka Graha Peduli and Angka Graha Network for supporting this event. Everyone, you may be seated.
Welcome, everybody. Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia is proud to host President José Ramos Horta, who has been a very good friend of FPCI.
President Ramos Horta, before we listen to your policy speech, FPCI has a welcoming treat for you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the LSPR Choir. big round of applause to palestra. President Ramos Horta, Jakarta welcomes you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the policy speech by President José Ramos Horta, President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. President Ramos Horta's visit marks his first official state visit abroad since his return to presidency.
To begin today's event, we would like to invite Dr. Dino Patti Djalal, as the founder and chairman of Foreign Policy Committee of Indonesia, to deliver his opening remarks. Dr. Dino, the podium is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Let's give all of us a big hand today. President José Ramos Horta, welcome to Indonesia and all the cabinet members, and also my mentor, Pak Hasan, Pak Dubes Okto, Pak Dubes dari Timor-Leste, all the ambassadors who are here, all the students. Pasti Braka, I'm so proud to see you here. It's going to be a great day and a great discussion. I see Pak Madi also, Pak Iwan, and all our ambassadors who are here, Pak Najib. But before we begin the discussion, I want to get one issue out of the way. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, there was a lot of heat over a comment that FPCI, especially me, made about the Ukraine war. I think 2 weeks ago, during the visit by President Jokowi to Russia, I said that President Putin was not interested in a peace mission and was only interested in continuing the war. And we received thousands of comments here, and a lot of buzzers said a lot of nasty things. Right? But not fortunately or unfortunately, what we said, what we predicted, turned out to be true. You see what happens now. The war has intensified. There's not a single needle in the peace process moving forward by Indonesia or by anybody because President Putin is not interested. And the suffering and destruction in Ukraine has continued. Yeah. So that is the situation. But for us as FPCI, what is surprising is that the attack on what is really a normal academic analysis. And in our view, this is something new and a bit worrying, because at FPCI, what we want to do is keep the space open for an intelligent, dynamic, and open discussions on foreign policy issues. And for the students here, the FPCI chapters from all over the place, I want you to know that it is very important to understand why FPCI stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine because we stand for independence, we stand for sovereignty, we stand for democracy, we stand for human rights, we stand for rule of law, yeah, and we stand for democracy. It is for these reasons, forget all these strategic arguments, but it is for this reason that FPCI takes the stand that we do on Ukraine. So I need to get that out of the way. Yeah. Having said that, welcome, José Ramos Horta. I call him my president. I've had a long relationship with President Ramos Horta. When I joined Kemlu, we were in opposite sides. Yeah, there were times that we debated, but then after the referendum in 1999, our relationship changed. We became friends, and we became close friends, family friends, and we developed a professional relationship. When I was special advisor on foreign policy for President Yudhoyono, with Foreign Minister Pak Hassan Barayuda, our first priority really was to fix our relations with Timor-Leste. We addressed many sensitive issues, including the human rights violations that took place around referendum and before that, and how we were able to resolve that in the midst of very complicated domestic political situation. Right? And in all this time, I've noticed that José Ramos Horta is really an exceptional human being. There's a decency to the man. He's very consistent. He is a skillful politician, but beyond that, he is a wise statesman. He is very dedicated as a public servant. He has held many positions as president of Timor-Leste, as foreign minister, as what else? You got prime minister, right? And in the last 10 years, where you were retired, we were actually in the same club, right? We retired public servants, but he's held many positions. He was appointed by the UN Secretary General to help resolve the conflict in Guinea-Bissau, which he did very successfully. He's also a member of the humanitarian fraternity group, which was initiated by the Pope, and also by the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar. He served as a member of the Commission on Drug Policy of the UN, and also a very active member of the Global Leadership Alliance, which is Club de Madrid. And in fact, yesterday we had a good discussion on that. So a very exceptional person. I think probably you are the only Southeast Asian leader who earned the title Nobel laureate. Yeah, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think you're the only one who has that distinction. Timor-Leste has elected you as president, and we look forward to hearing from you, Mr. President. What are your thoughts on Timor-Leste, on Timor-Indonesia relations, on the region, and of course on the state of the world? I know you have a lot of concerns about how the world is evolving. So with that said, we are very happy to have you, my friend. This is going to be entertaining but also educational 90 minutes for all of us. And now I have the pleasure to invite President José Ramos Horta to the stage to deliver his policy speech. Thank you.
Education Minister, Horta hasoru, and the Ambassador of Timor-Leste, Dr. Dino Patti Djalal, former Prime Minister and Minister of Justice, now head of international relations in my office. And second row, Dr. Martino Malu, head of a unit in my office on human fraternity, follow up to my work as a member of the jury of an international award established by His Holiness the Pope and the Grand Imam Al-Azhar of Cairo. And the Dulce, Dr. Dulce, former Minister of Education, Timor-Leste, and some with the master right here, and Dr. also, and last but not least, my grandson. Go ahead and stand up. So I hope I didn't miss any of my compatriots out here. Thank you, Dino, for again giving me this platform to share what might be my inconsequential views on global affairs. But allow me to start with a short sort of tour d'horizon of Timor-Leste, where we are 20 years after independence. I would summarize very quickly to say, in a very objective fashion, at all take office, I'm safely distant from you. It means I'm not afraid of catching a bit from you. I just don't want to share any potential conflict from me with you. So out of respect to others that I put the mask, but since I'm 3 meters away, and even though the droplets of COVID can float and actually can reach more. I probably have been one of the most vaccinated person on earth. I did the 4th vaccine just a week ago, and I do self-testing very regularly. But here in Indonesia, like Singapore, Malaysia, you people love air conditioning, and I always suffer when I come to Indonesia, to Singapore, Malaysia, because the air conditioning is set 17 degrees. And, so I get a bit sick over it. And I cannot forget my mentor, the former ambassador in Indonesia to Timor-Leste, Sosial, is a Batak. And the current ambassador also Sosial. Thank you for both joining us. Hasan Wireyuda, also my mentor. Together with, I have 2 best mentors here in Indonesia, Hasan and Dino. Thank you for the opportunity. So, Timor-Leste, 20 years after the restoration of independence, where we are, I cite some figures on the political democracy front. And I quote Freedom House, The Economist, Timor-Leste is #1 functioning democracy in Southeast Asia. I would even say beyond Southeast Asia, you know. Maybe only Korea and Japan might outdo Timor-Leste. Freedom of press, we are number 17 in more than 100 countries in the world, researched by Reporters Without Borders. At independence, we had 20 medical doctors. Today, we have about 1,300 medical doctors. Most of them trained either in Cuba or in our medical school in Timor-Leste, mostly managed by Cuban professors, but also doctors trained in Indonesia, many in Australia, in India, Nepal, Fiji, etc. And one heart surgeon, Dr. Andre, is trained in Indonesia and also in Portugal, specialization. And life expectancy before independence was below 60. Today, for women, 71.6. For men, 70 something. That's compared with some existing current ASEAN countries. We are 5 years above one of them, and we are about the same with another one. And we are only 20 years independent. It is an oasis of tranquility. We have zero political violence. We have zero ethnic-based or religious-based violence. We have multiple parties in the parliament, outside the parliament, even more. Common criminality also very low. Organized crime also non-existent. Although I would acknowledge we don't have organized crime because generally in Timor-Leste we are disorganized. So our own criminals are not better organized than politicians. And, either our police is very good, or the criminals are very amateurish because they always get caught by the police. And so we are living in an oasis of tranquility in the midst of some extraordinary and complex situations. Myanmar is one of them, right in the heart of Southeast Asia. I commend the leadership of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and all other ASEAN countries for trying to address these that right in the heart of ASEAN and challenge ASEAN centrality. A bit like Africans, I spend a lot of time with the UN in not only Guinea-Bissau, but to work in Guinea-Bissau to resolve the conflict there. I had to work with literally everyone in West Africa, from Senegal to Cote d'Ivoire to Nigeria, and then with others extra regional powers like Angola, France, etc. And unlike these Africans say, African problems, African solutions. Southeast Asian problems, ASEAN solutions. Easier said than done, and that's ideal. That's why we have a regional organization to prevent conflicts, and when conflicts occur, and obviously easy, the speech on conflict prevention is a great, obviously a great is desirable that we prevent conflict before they happen. But when they do happen, enter mediation, and that's the role of primary role is regional organizations. But whether in Southeast Asia, whether in the Middle East, whether in Africa, that has not always been the case. Local problems, regional solutions, not always the case. And that's not blaming anyone. We could blame the UN, the permanent members of the Security Council for dragging on the war in Syria, in Yemen, for the inability of our collective security system in preventing and resolving conflict when they occur. More than 10 years ago, I gave a speech in Geneva at the Palais des Nations. I don't remember at the time, and I was in Guinea-Bissau, under Secretary General, Special Rep, or in another position. And the other speaker was Matti Ahtisaari, former president of Finland. We had an audience of 700 people. And most questions came to me. And obviously, if I have as a companion another speaker like Matti Ahtisaari, who is a top professional diplomat, very finished, very nothing, and not very exciting or excitable. And so people gave up trying to get answers from him. And it is a consummate statement. So most questions were actually addressed to me, and one question was on Syria. And I told the audience, that was 10 years ago or more. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you a cliche answer. I'm going to tell you what exactly I feel and is going to happen. I said, some conflicts will go on forever, non-stop. Many tens of thousands, 100,000 people will die. And only when all sides in a conflict are exhausted, then they will sue for peace. This is what happened in the Iraq-Iran war. 8 years, more than 1 million people died. And finally, they sat down and resolved the conflict. But that was possible because there were two powerful leaders in each of those countries, Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Khomeini in Iran. So when the leader decided we end the war, we end the war. In Syria, well, that's not the case. There are more than 100 armed conflicts, armed groups, and so many regional entities involved and extra-regional entities involved. I said, it's not going to end anytime soon. Well, 10 years later, still ongoing. Failure of our collective security system, the P5, or the World Security Council, some directly involved, some indirectly involved, some supporting their faction in Syria and so on. And that is and not the first time. Ukraine is not the first time that our collective security system failed. It failed in Syria, failed in Yemen, failed in Libya, etc. It doesn't mean I'm not dismissing the UN, quite the opposite. A UN that has been often mistreated, ignored, sidelined, but in the midst of all these tragedies, it is only the UN that managed to be present in Yemen, believed in saving lives. It's only the UN that is through its agencies managed to be present in Afghanistan, in Syria, saving lives. Of course, with the goodwill of the international donors that provide humanitarian aid. So there are aspects of the multilateral system that is still extremely, as the French would say, incontournable. You cannot ignore or go around it. That's where they are. But prevention of a conflict, which was Antonio Guterres, Secretary General, when he was first absolute priority of his office mandate, conflict prevention. In the process, he created a group called High Level Board on Mediation. I had just finished my previous assignment. Of course, West Africa, that was an absolute priority for Antonio Guterres. But I think easier said than done. Conflict prevention is the ideal strategy, ideal thinking, whether conflict prevention at community level to prevent conflict from occurring and being exacerbated, and often conflicts are small, exacerbated when parties involved, local level, regional, or national level, dismissed because they say they are not terribly important. Then these conflicts gain more simmer more, and then suddenly one day it explodes. It sounds because when there were a chance to address the root of the tensions, many leaders for different reasons ignore, dismiss. I have observed it in many countries in our own country. So conflict prevention not only should occur not only at the level of UN headquarters or headquarters in Europe or in ASEAN. Conflict prevention has to start mechanisms, arrangements with local authorities, local leaders, and whatever they are, local leaders, church leaders, community traditional leaders, and so on. And then move on to the national level. Address conflicts in community level, and then national level, and the regional, obviously. But easier said than done. That's the nature of our world. So-called lesson that we supposed to have learned from history. Soon after World War II, we end up with the genocide in Cambodia. And then we didn't learn. We had Rwanda, where the UN failed miserably. Because in New York, and that was an abysmal failure of 3 people who were in key positions in Washington and 2 in New York. They failed to take prompt action in response to the Canadian general who was the chief of peacekeeping in Rwanda to increase, to strengthen UN presence. It was dismissed by New York and Washington. Genocide occurred. But in the midst of this situation, sometimes there are heroes. I visited Kigali a few years ago in my work as part of the Honor and Peace Operation. And in the Genocide Museum in Kigali, you will see a great reference to a New Zealand ambassador. New Zealand was a member of the UN Security Council in '94 when the genocide took place. And it was that little country, New Zealand, far off in the Pacific, that raised its voice in the Security Council, valiantly trying to push the Security Council to take preventive measures by increasing the force in Rwanda. Well, he was not heard, but he is a hero in Rwanda. So in midst of this, there are great individuals. Syria. We had Kofi Annan first, especially for the Secretary General and the League of Arab States. It lasted only 3 months, he gave up and blamed unnamed powers that made it very difficult. Then came Lakhdar Brahimi, veteran Algerian diplomat. He lasted 3 years. Then he addressed Syrians through television and apologized for his inability to resolve the conflict, and still ongoing. In the midst of all of this, these tragedies, as if in Iraq we had a pandemic, then we have now Russia, Ukraine. I have to say, I fully commend President Jokowi in going to Ukraine and Russia. If I'm not mistaken, he is the only leader so far who has been able to go to the two sides. And he has done what normally an intelligent third-party personality, I wouldn't want it to call mediator because I don't know whether Indonesia considers itself a mediator, but you try first some incremental measures that sometimes we call confidence-building measures, things that are easier to resolve than the root of the problem, and that is to facilitate the export of wheat and other products, food from Russia and Ukraine, because it is the action particularly of Russia, but also of the NATO countries, because of the sanctions on Russia, the blockade of Ukraine that has caused this worldwide social humanitarian crisis. And in the midst of it, I saw in a small village in Timor-Leste how far Indonesia has become also a global economic player. I used to buy bean oil. We consume at home, but I also buy regularly to give to some poor communities. And I used to buy for $4.60 for 5 liters. Well, soon after Indonesia was forced to stop the export, the next bean oil I bought, 5 liters, was $13, $14, $15. And it has gone down a bit, but not much, because people got used to making such a huge profit. They had adaptations of it, so now they are themselves playing and not lowering much more than below $11. And you see Pakistan, Bangladesh, all dependent on Indonesian oil. And then ironically, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I remember reading Malaysia by Western powers over palm oil. That is very detrimental. Well, maybe palm oil is very detrimental to the environment, as is non-renewable energy like oil, coal, and all our minerals. So why you punish Indonesia victim of this? Wars like World War II, we had no idea what was World War II. I was not born at the time, but I presume our people are totally confused. What war is this that reached the shore of Timor-Leste? What wars are these that are created by the powers that be that failed to prevent the conflict in Ukraine? Whatever reason we can explain, each side will have plenty of arguments to say why Russia felt necessary to invade and why the West has to support Ukraine. Whatever is the fact is, we're all suffering on top of the COVID pandemic. And in the midst of all of this, all these years, I have not seen global leadership on, for instance, seriously addressing the consequence of pandemic and now the Ukraine war, and that is the death of countries around the world. First, we start with the LDCs, the first start with the fragile state, the G7 plus group of countries, extremely poor, many still in conflict, then the LDCs, least developed countries, and then the highly indebted countries. The only way for these countries to have a chance to recover from the pandemic and now exacerbated by the Ukraine war is to have a global writing off of the debt. If we don't have the wisdom and the generosity, because it's a combination of wisdom and generosity and pragmatism, there is not going to be quick recovery. And now there are hundreds of millions of people thrown back into poverty, including tens of millions of children. Actually, figure I saw last night a bit like 300 million children who are no longer able to go into school. I'm not sure whether the figures are correct, but I had a glance of the statistics yesterday. Meeting with President Jokowi the other day, I delivered to him a letter co-signed by me with Gordon Brown and more than 100, several hundred global personalities to plead with President Jokowi in his capacity as chairman of G20 to put high on the agenda the issue of child labor, child poverty, extreme poverty in the world. They are going to meet in Bali, and they cannot simply pretend that there are no millions of children that are suffering the consequences of the war in Ukraine and the consequences of the pandemic and so on. It's a moral, ethical challenge to the G20. And of course, I have the fullest confidence that the President will try to mobilize the G20 countries, at least to do something. You cannot resolve, and I'm too mature, too aged to believe in rhetoric of resolving Ukraine, but at least show moral ethics, doing something concrete on child labor, child slavery, on extreme poverty. Right off the bat, launch some initiative like a new global master plan, focus on education, focus on poverty, etc. Individual, families, than ever. So it is possible that a combination of private sector, humanitarian, philanthropic organizations, families, rich families, that we do something that is moral. Focus on something specific. And that is child labor, child poverty, and extreme poverty across the world. I try so therefore to share with you the good news of my country, which many of you present here so much contribute, and to thank ASEAN for the tremendous work done to assist us in the last 10 years for Timor-Leste to join. I told President Jokowi yesterday, please, on the 19th, please, I would like to see Timor-Leste joining ASEAN during Indonesian presidency. Of course, Indonesia, like many other countries, have been very supportive of Timor-Leste membership in ASEAN. We are part of Southeast Asia. We do not belong to any other regional organization. We have made tremendous progress in the last 10 years. But sometimes, as a human being, I feel frustrated, and I ask myself, it seems like the road to heaven, to reach the perfection of heaven, is easier than to reach the gates of ASEAN. It seems as if to reach ASEAN you have to fulfill all the criteria to enter heaven. And then the next step is ASEAN. it seemed to be more demanding than when Romania, Bulgaria, and all other Eastern European post-Soviet era countries joined the European Union. And so I hope that let us in ASEAN be part of ASEAN. And Hassan Wiruda is here, and many other Indonesian diplomats and others have seen what we have done in the last 10 years to prepare the country for ourselves. We are not doing things only because of ASEAN. No. We're improving our economy. As I mentioned, the figures in every aspect, literally. We are more than ready to join ASEAN. I think I should stop here because I don't even check the time. I probably went beyond the time. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Bapak President. And before I ask you some questions, I also want to recognize some people. Ibu Roro, our young, idealistic, and dynamic politician from Parliament, DPR. Please stand up for us to recognize. This is also a climate champion. And also a former president of Indonesian diaspora and now vice president of ASEAN Development Bank, Bapak Zaidan Syahmir. Can you stand up so we recognize you? Pak President, I wish you all the best in your bid to be a member of ASEAN. As you know, Pak Hassan Wirayuda and myself pushed very hard since 10, 12 years ago for East Timor to become a member of ASEAN. But of course, ASEAN has 10 countries. We have to get everybody to agree to it. And my question is this. Right now, globally, we are seeing very intense great power rivalry. And relations between Russia and the West is permanently broken. China and the West is having serious issues. Russia, China is getting closer. India, China remains challenging relationship and so on. And there are, of course, possibilities that these great power rivalries are being brought to our region, to ASEAN. And we are yet to see how ASEAN will respond to this. Of course, ASEAN must have a response. I'm just wondering, from your standpoint, how should ASEAN respond to this new geopolitical discussion within our own region, of course?
Well, by judging from the way ASEAN is managing Myanmar, which should be the absolute priority of ASEAN. Myanmar is terribly important, huge population in a very strategic location in Southeast Asia, and it is a big question mark, in a regional organization that otherwise is enormously respected, prestigious. I might be mistaken, but from my knowledge, it's the only regional organization where in its regular summits, all the global players in the world descend on the venue of the summit, whether it's Russia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, United States, Australia, European Union, everybody, China, descend on the venue to meet with ASEAN leaders. The same does not happen with even the European Union, doesn't happen with African Union or the Organization of American States or the League of Arab States. So I can imagine that must be a huge frustration for ASEAN leaders having to deal with these extraordinary problems in Myanmar. Because Myanmar is not only the denial of setback of democracy, but it's a huge humanitarian catastrophe. At least 800,000 or more people are in Bangladesh, and many hundreds of thousands in Thailand, in Malaysia, and elsewhere, a bit more in Thailand. So it's a pressure on these countries to deal with the complexities of the humanitarian situation. Having said that, of course, on the other hand, a country like Indonesia is 270 million, enormous success in the last 20 years, transition from the Suharto era to democracy. It has done extremely well, one of the most inclusive, embracing, tolerant, very diversified country, majority Muslim, but also very significant minorities of other religions, ethnic groups, and one of the greatest success of nation building anywhere in the world. And when I say Indonesia is very tolerant, it's not only like sometimes we say the cliche, oh, the most tolerant Muslim country. I say no, it is the most tolerant, one of the most tolerant period. Meaning, you compare with any other country, whatever the country is, Indonesia stands out as one of the most inclusive, one of the most tolerant. I have observed this over the years. So Indonesia might be able to play a role, yes, on the Ukraine situation. Many people might disagree. I completely agree with President Jokowi having gone to Moscow and Ukraine. He's the only leader, I think, who has done that. And if first steps are to release the millions of tons of food that are stuck in the ports and to safely go to their destination, that is already a major achievement. And that might create, it might be part of confidence building measures that the two sides might grab to scale back the situation. So I'm not an expert in any sort, but I took part in a Zoom 2-3 months before the Ukraine war. Russia was already amassing troops around Ukraine. And I said, I don't think Putin will invade. He's claimed brinkmanship. But I said also, the problem with brinkmanship is that if the other side doesn't blink, well, so the other side didn't blink, and Russia had a choice: pull back and lose face, or take the next step. The next step is the abyss. So Putin, instead of backing down, invade. Catastrophe for Ukraine, for Europe, catastrophe for Russia. It's not only Russia doesn't come out. I'm not talking about consequence of sanctions. I'm talking about the fabric of the society. That Russia would invade another country, and after itself was destroyed during World War II. Russians fought heroic battles to free themselves from Germany and Nazi occupation, and then launched this cruel war on Ukraine. Well, it will affect the society, the people, the way they see life, the same way they see Russia. You destroy your own soul, you wounded your own soul, your values, and so on. And so will have a long-term consequence for Russian society.
Let me follow up on that point. And this is a question that I know the Indonesian government is trying to figure out, but the answer is not easy. We have two competing trends in international affairs. One is the world is becoming divided and locked in strategic contests and economic decoupling. So that's one trend. But on the other hand, there is a need for global solutions to climate change, to the pandemic, to poverty, and so on. Right? So how does a world that is divided and locked in strategic contests and economic decoupling create global cooperation? Does that mean we're now stuck in the next decade on countries growing apart. They grow, but they grow apart rather than grow together. What is your answer to that?
Again, I don't like cliches, because or easy answers, sound bites. We talk all the time about dialogue. Yes, of course, everybody knows that. A great friend of mine, I don't mention his name because I have great respect for him. And he's a global figure. And he often says, there will be peace in the world if we all have inner peace. Well, if I were to say that myself in a meeting like this, or with some people will say, well, so what? That's not exactly a profound statement. But said by him, that's well, everybody, that is a profound statement. Well, yes, sure, you're going to tell the Taliban to have an inner peace. You're going to tell Al-Qaeda and to have an inner peace, so that we stop all extremism. The world as it has been all these centuries has been power, territorial conquest, prestige, credibility, of course sometimes survival of the country, and that's how it has been. And that's why we create global security mechanisms and hoping we operate all under international law that are very clearly defined. So the architecture of international law is amazing, how over the centuries it's developed into this incredible debate for preservation of international peace and order. And when a permanent member of the Security Council like Russia, invade a sovereign country, and then they all hell breaks loose, and we don't know the end, and it's going to be escalating. And then we have the South China Sea. The law of the sea stipulates very clearly median line for coastal states that overlap in their respective EEZ, exclusive economic zone. Each of us entitled to 200 zone. When it overlaps, it's medium line. Timor-Leste and Australia, we had a dispute over the definition, the delimitation of maritime boundary. But the Australian side showed their statesmanship, that particularly by Foreign Minister at the time, Bishop, I forgot her first name, Julie Bishop, great lady, we reached in a record time an agreement, the limitation of the maritime boundary based on Timor claims, medium line. Any solution to the South China Sea has to follow international law, and that is an adjustment, medium line, and whatever, even medium line cannot work, well, you adjust for all the states claiming them. And when China built military facilities in the South China Sea, obviously some countries that were used to freedom of navigation feel threatened, feel impeded. They also move in forces. So South China Sea, as a reaction to Chinese military presence in the South China Sea area, become militarized. And the more jet fighters move to the area, the more warships move to the area, the risks of accident, the danger will increase. So that's one big problem. Apart from Ukraine, I would say South China Sea probably is more dangerous than North Korea situation. And precisely because there are too many claimants. And so you have all these situations that Asia faces as a region. I hear often talk about 21st century, Asia century. Well, yes and no. And when you have Asia has the most number of countries with nuclear weapons. Not number of warheads, but number of countries with nuclear weapons. India, Pakistan, facing each other. India facing also China, and China probably also targeting any other country like Japan and so on. And we have North Korea, which is already a nuclear power. There is no illusion about that. And yet, in spite of there is so much more liquidity, money concentrated in Asia than anywhere in the world. And yet Asia has, if you're not mistaken, 60% of world poverty. Of course, because the region is big, 4 billion people, and that's where the largest percentage of poverty. And we have failed, even in Asia, to address climate change challenges, population pressure on water, on land, on forest, pollution resulting from our own industrialization. So Asia should have, if it wishes to be the 21st century, Asia should launch its own Asia Marshall Plan. Bring all the resources, the liquidity that so many people have in Asia, know-how, develop a master plan that has to be several tracks, including the confidence building measures to lower nuclear weapons, standing armies, and so on. Is it to 2 months? Well, of course it's 2 months, but we have no other choice. The other choice is, well, one day a nuclear accident, one day 2 jet fighters fight each other on the South China Sea. And who can do that? Well, academics, intellectuals can prepare all these studies and then submit to governments and help with the ideas. That's what I believe that's possible today with the wealth that exists in Asia.
My last question before we open up, and this is more historical perspective. You mentioned about President Jokowi's visit to see President Putin. I think in retrospect, I think one thing that he should have told President Putin is that, hey, Russia can learn a lot from Indonesia in terms of how Indonesia treated Timor-Leste, East Timor, because once East Timor separated from Indonesia after 1999, and it was very difficult and also a violent process. But after that, Indonesia treated Timor-Leste as equal. And with full respect to the territorial integrity of Timor-Leste, we had zero interest in political intervention, strong economic cooperation, and it is unthinkable for Indonesia now to invade Timor-Leste for any reason, right? If that were to happen, that would be just unthinkable, right? And yet, that's what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. So I guess my question to you, President, as a student of political scientists, I'm really amazed at how Indonesia and Timor-Leste, with such a difficult history of breakup, can establish relations that surprise everybody, right? And I think should be inspiring to other places with conflictual relations. So you and I and Hassan were involved in this from the beginning. What is, you think, the secret of how that happened? A relationship with lots of potential for enmity, but becoming surprisingly a relation of very close amity and good relationship that we have now, which is very rare among countries with conflictual history.
It all boils down to leadership of the two sides. Beginning with B.J. Habibie, who, like Gorbachev or Freddie de Klerk in South Africa, there was a window of opportunity for not only for Timor, for Indonesia to change. And with the end of the Suharto era, of course, there are many possible outcomes. One outcome is even another line military, as it happened in our situation. Or see the opportunity, and it was admirable that he was a weak president in the sense, he was not elected, and not a military person. But he had the courage, and but also it shows that in spite of all the problems of the Indonesian army, it still had, this mindset in respecting the orders of the political orders, even before the democracy. So, because if the Indonesian military would have said to Habib, nothing we can do about it, and because the Indonesian military were not defeated in Timor-Leste, and in such situations like ours and elsewhere in many colonial conflicts, well, there was no military success for anyone. There was no clear-cut military victory for anyone. The war would have been go on and on. So, in Timor-Leste, Habibie decided democracy for Indonesia and resolve the Timor problem. I was in Atlanta at the time when Habibie here in Jakarta made an announcement about the referendum. I had many friends in CNN in Atlanta, and I don't remember how I ended up spending several days with friends in the CNN headquarters. And one of them came to me and said, Jose, come. President of Indonesia is speaking. And that's when Habibie announced, he was in a meeting with Indonesian business people, and he said, by the end of this year, I want to resolve the problem of this Timor thing. And he said, in a very dismissive way, East Timor had only rocks, only problems. Let's get out. He said, too many rocks, only rocks. And sometimes when I travel in Timor, I see so many rocks. I said, Habibie actually like the rocks everywhere. And he very pragmatic, and that's how we announced. And of course, he had very solid advisors, great people, great mind, like Dewi Anwar. Then came Gusdur, absolutely great human being, and then Ibu Mega and all other Indonesian leaders. They showed statesmanship. As the French would say, they showed order. A difficult way, a difficult word to find the exact translation in English, but they show a higher standing or whatever in that you don't allow yourself to be constrained by pettiness, wanting to revenge, and so on. So Indonesian leaders and society accept the fact that Timor-Leste parted ways with Indonesia. It can be painful for the other side. But on the other hand, the Timorese side, led by Shanana, was a guerrilla fighter, super charismatic individual, brilliant strategist, and as he himself would say, he spent 8 years in the Sipina University. And it was in Sipina that he learned more about Indonesia. And he said at one point, I learned to love Indonesian people. And he became friends with many people, including, I don't mention the name, I don't know what it could be embarrassing for Indonesia. There was a famous banker who was in prison in Sipina because hundreds of millions of dollars disappeared from his bank. And then he was put in prison. Shanana became a friend of his. And, one day Shanana was, he had a laptop. We even managed to snag a laptop telephone into Shanana's cell. Then suddenly people came to inspect the prison. That particular gentleman knew that, he immediately went to Shanana's cell. He stood at the door, at the gate of Shanana's cell, chatting with Shanana, and then when the military people came, he chatted with them to give time to Shanana to hide the laptop.
That's interesting.
So, that was told by extraordinary human relations developed.
I was Sanana's handler when he was in jail, so that guy was probably me.
So, tribute to Indonesia for having behaved the way it has behaved with Timor-Leste. No temptation of revenge, because you can revenge very different ways. One is by indifference, by ignoring, by turning the back. You don't have to do anything actively harmful. And on the other hand, Timor-Leste also we fought hard to prevent an international tribunal for Timor-Leste. And there was a lot of pressure. And I was the public face of arguing against it in Timor-Leste. In our own parliament, I was foreign minister. And once I told in our parliament when I was foreign minister, you people want an international tribunal? Yes, go find another foreign minister. This one is not going to do it. So, you understand sentiments of people, but we understood the challenge of transition in Indonesia, and I often said so many times, more than 10 years with our NGOs, I have the fullest confidence in the Indonesian civil society. They will progress. And if there's going to be justice in the sense of prosecutorial justice, retributive justice. So Indonesia has been extraordinarily generous to Timor-Leste. One thing that doesn't enter into the reports on aid is it from day one, even before independence in 2000, the then President Gusdur wrote to Indonesian universities, encouraged them, pleading with them, to let Timorese study in Indonesia, pay local fee, not foreign student fee. It would be impossible for Timorese at the time. With this, thousands of Timorese gained access to Indonesian universities. So if you calculate this, and many Timorese students, and our leaders, many of our leaders today, they study Indonesia. Mariano Sabido, you can stand up, Mariano. Mariano is one of the youngest Timorese leaders. I used to say that he is very articulate, he speaks like good Carter used to speak. And
I think you were a protester at the embassy where I was a diplomat. Oh, that's me.
but instead of studying, getting a PhD, spend more time organizing protests. But he did finish his degree. Dionisio Babu studied in Udayana in Mali, law, and then later went to do PhD at ANU. They did to Freighter. Have these incredible connections. And if you look at the data, the statistics of Timorese entering Indonesia, I couldn't believe when Sosial for the first time, they gave me the data. Timorese entering Indonesia every month. Remember, we have population 1.3 million. More than 100,000 enter Indonesia every month. I couldn't believe the figure. We are number 4 in terms of countries, visitors coming to Indonesia. Below continent, compared with China, Turkey, and and that shows the extraordinary connectivity, connection, emotional.
President, for the benefit of the young leaders who are sitting here, and by the way, they're called Paski Braka, which is the best students who raise the flags during independence. Just for them to hear, after 23 years of a violent and difficult breakup, is there anyone today in Timor-Leste that shows hatred towards Indonesia?
Zero.
You hear that, guys? Zero.
We have many thousands of the Indonesian citizens living in Timor-Leste. People who came after independence, some have been there before, they returned. And Timorese also do not suffer any mistreatment or any abuse in Indonesia. And I have to say, our young people, particularly the young particularly our people, sometimes they think they're too smart and let their passport expire and then overstay in Indonesia. Usually, Indonesian immigration are very rough with any other nationality. With the Timorese, they often not let them through. No punishment, no. That's some Timorese they tell. If you tell your Timorese, they will not let you through. And I know specific cases, specific situations. One young Timorese, I know her well. She was studying here in Jakarta music. She allowed her passport visa to expire, I don't know how many years. Then called me, pleading with me for $4,000 to pay the fine. I said, listen, I'm not going to give you $4,000 to pay any fine. But then she went to the police and she managed to talk to letting her leave the country. That was just around COVID time. So there have been these individual examples of how Indonesians are very tolerant towards native Timorese.
Thank you. Let me just take some questions now. I'm going to take 3 questions. I hear there's one from Paski Braka. Can you raise your hand? Oh, okay. Please get up and say your name. And also, I'm told about the area, somebody from area. Okay, please get ready. And then somebody from FPCI chapter, Prezidente University. Okay, if you don't mind just coming to the front near the microphone. Udah ada? Okay, alright, please. And after that, if there's a question from the media or the audience, most welcome. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Intan hasoru, as well known as Intan. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Paski Braka. Mr. President, as we all know, Timor-Leste is a country that is geographically located in Southeast Asia region, but has not joined ASEAN until now. Then what are the efforts made by Timor-Leste to become a member of ASEAN? Thank you.
Thank you. Area? In the middle.
Excellency. So, you have already mentioned Timor-Leste's potential membership of ASEAN, and there is anticipation that perhaps next year Timor-Leste will be admitted into ASEAN. Beyond the important sense of belonging to the regional community that will bring, what benefits have you identified as being a member of ASEAN?
Okay, President University, and then if any media want to ask after President University, please raise your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon, and first of all, it is a great honor and pleasure for us to have this opportunity to share today. And my name is Tiara Aurelia Putri from FPCI Chapter President University. And here I have 2 questions based on Mr. President.
Do you mind just one question, please?
Oh, okay, just one question. Okay, so seeing Timor-Leste momentum in the world of economy and also the state relations, there is a possible change that Timor-Leste could join ASEAN. So my question is, with Timor-Leste being the newest member with a new perspective, what is Timor-Leste, or maybe Mr. President Ramos Horta view on the ASEAN principle of non-interference? I think that's all for me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, anyone from Esther, by the way, prepared that picture. I want to ask a question about that. Anyone from the media? Nobody from media? Yes, please.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Eno from National Radio of Indonesia. My question for Mr. President, do you have an insight about Indonesian presidency in G20? Thank you.
Okay, and then can you post that picture? I want to ask a question, but Esther, you got it? Can you post it now? My question: what happened to that hair?
Oh,
Okay, you can answer it last.
embarrassing.
Please.
Please remind me about the first question.
The first question is about East Timor's bid to membership in ASEAN. What is the update on that? When do you think that's going to happen?
Well, there have been some ASEAN mission to Timor-Leste. I think at least 3 or 4 missions. 2 occurred in the month of July, covering all 3 pillars. And from our informal understanding, because obviously the reports are for the head of state, government of ASEAN, not to share with the public, but for our understanding, obviously they're very impressed with efforts and achievements made by Timor-Leste. And I would suspect that their recommendation would be to ASEAN leaders that Timor-Leste should join ASEAN now. So that's what I expect. Many countries that I met with over the years, whether Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines, and other Indonesia, Brunei, His Majesty Sultan, one of the earliest supporters of Timor-Leste. They all say, why not? Let us join now. Some countries even advocated that ASEAN should let Timor-Leste now, that was 10 years ago, and then having a 5-year, 10-year program to support Timor-Leste to catch up with the rest of ASEAN. So I think the European Union may do that also with some new applicants. There are very strict conditions to join the European Union, but there are also situations of exception in some areas. So why not? What we'd like to see is that Timor-Leste finally join ASEAN during Indonesian presidency. It will be the culmination of this great history, this great journey between Timor-Leste and Indonesia. In this region that they mentioned, the problem from Myanmar are resolved. Timor-Leste membership in ASEAN will show how ASEAN, Indonesia, have progressed in such a way that as a group, collectively have helped the country post-conflict to emerge from post-conflict to be a member of ASEAN. It will be a festival of success for the Indonesian presidency, for ASEAN.
Second question was what would be the benefits for East Timor? For Timor-Leste if it joins ASEAN?
We would be part of a regional economy of about 700 million people, over $4 trillion joint GDP. And in anticipation of Timor-Leste joining ASEAN, we have already a long list of potential investors from China, from Korea, Europe, UK, Germany, pharmaceutical companies from Europe, medical industries, particularly in view of the breakdown of supply chain that is obvious with COVID and now the war in Ukraine. Many countries are looking how to position themselves in. They don't want to go cook. They want to live in China. Some live in China, but they don't want to leave Asia. So they're looking for space. And Timor-Leste is virgin territory. And we opt for free trade. Timor-Leste, in my at least I completely support free trade with any country. The tariffs and all of these are, in my view, as it creates layers of bureaucracy. It constitutes an impediment to look at Mexico, the way Mexico progressed after NAFTA. That's why Donald Trump didn't like NAFTA. He ordered the review of NAFTA. I knew Mexico before they joined NAFTA, during and since. How it has changed, the benefit of all Mexico. So free trade, there are problems, obviously. Nothing is free, nothing is, not everything is rosy, but so Timor-Leste will benefit tremendously from this gigantic $700 billion economy. And with free trade agreements with Australia, Japan, Korea, China, and now I think ASEAN negotiating with the European Union. So there are very interested people like wanting to make our second international airport, Balboa Airport, which are being refurbished by the United States into an air cargo hub, aircraft maintenance hub. So there are plenty of opportunities to join. Not joining ASEAN, outside ASEAN, we are 1.3 billion. But of course, if we fail to join ASEAN, for some reason, we are eligible for heaven, but not for ASEAN. Well, there are countries beyond ASEAN. There is Australia, there is New Zealand, there is the United States, the European Union, and there is China. Completely embrace Timor-Leste. And some Australian media keep talking about Chinese influence in Timor-Leste. I have to tell, I often have said that we in Timor-Leste, we are the ones very worried about Chinese influence in Australia. We should be worried about Chinese influence in Australia and not worried about Chinese influence in Timor-Leste. Chinese are buying anything, everything in Australia. We don't have even loans with China. It's one of the few countries in the world, zero loan with China. We have with ADB and I think IFC, but basically that.
And from a question on G20, what do you think about Indonesia's presidency of G20 from the journalist?
G20. Yeah. It is a great challenge, great opportunity for President Jokowi to exercise, to show his leadership. It can be a great golden moment for the president. As we know, never before, at least in recent years, there are G20, of course G20 is recent, but of any international institution that we start dramatic challenges. And I personally deliver 2 or 3 letters to President Jokowi, besides Timor-Leste bilateral interest with Indonesia. I deliver a letter myself and Gordon Brown and more than 100 leaders dealing with the fallout of Ukraine, COVID. Another letter from the G7 fragile states, addressed also to President Jokowi, pleading with him not to allow issues that pertain to third world countries, particularly the fragile state, to be forgotten in the agenda of G20. And I believe a country like Indonesia, in the third world, you have India, you have Indonesia, you have Brazil, some of the more influential countries. With Indonesia, leadership of G20, and it's natural that President Jokowi will be a forceful advocate of our agendas. And I believe the other leaders will not be too much convincing because all are very sensitive people. I have the greatest respect for every country in the G20. Each of them, many of them have different challenges over the years, different experience, traumatic experience in their own country, in the region. So I don't think it is, I'm not referring to Ukraine, that G20 is going to resolve that. But beyond the Ukraine war, and there are the fallout of the Ukraine tragedy, there are issues that I think they can do. write off the debt of third world countries. And all some, at least for the fragile states, for the LDCs, write off completely. Everyone write off. Then for other third world countries, highly indebted countries, negotiate a restructure of the debt. That's the only way for us to have a chance, for the indebted countries to have a chance to recover their economy. Invest more on education for children and youth employment and so on. Because there is money in the world. When the Ukraine war happened, within a matter of days, the European Union managed to find $12 billion for Ukraine. That is almost, the total amount of international aid for, ODA. Of course, I know it has more than that. So there is possibility for a concerted action that is not Western-led, but G20-led, which is a combination of Western countries and the third world countries. So I believe President Jokowi is able to, his personality, his background, Indonesia's weight, I believe that.
Thank you. And I think the third question was also answered by President Ramos Horta. We're now going to a little fun part of the session, which is a quiz. We're going to have 3 or 4 questions quiz, and you will pick from all people who will answer which one should answer. And the prize is a photo hug with you and it's not very easy to get. All right, first question. 2 Timor-Leste nationals won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1996. Who were the 2 people? A. José Ramos Horta and Xanana Gusmão. B. Xanana Gusmão and Carlos Felipe Ximenes. C. José Ramos Horta and Nicolau dos Reis Lobato. And D. José Ramos Horta and Carlos Felipe Ximenes. You can pick
To decide?
Decide who will answer.
To answer? Anyone in the audience?
Okay, I'll pick that one first. The guy
I don't want to embarrass some friends.
All right, go ahead.
Rosa, Dr. Rosa. Dr. Rosa is a famous dentist.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the answer I'll say is the D ones. Joe Ramos Horta and Carlos Phillips.
All right, good. Okay, question number 2. And I'm sorry to say this, I hope you don't mind. In what year was there an assassination attempt at José Ramos Horta? A. 1997, B. 2002, C. 2008, and D. 2012.
2008.
Okay, the lady in the yellow jacket, please. Yes. Go ahead. You didn't just Google this, right? C, 2008, is that correct? Okay. Congratulations. Third question. What are the 2 official languages of Timor-Leste? A. Tetum and Portuguese. B. Bahasa Indonesia and English. C. Tetum and English. D. Bahasa Indonesia and Portuguese.
You're ready.
All right, go. Yes.
It's A, that's open Portuguese.
All right.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, please.
We do have 2 official languages, Tetum and Portuguese, but also 2 working languages in the Constitution, Bahasa Indonesia and English.
All right. Thank you. The fourth question, we have the fourth question, it's not up there. President Ramos Horta, I don't know who gave this question, but I have to read it if you don't mind. President Ramos Horta has nice teeth. Who is President Ramos Horta's most favorite dentist? A. Dr. Vincent Piquet from Amsterdam. B. Dr. Penny Williams from Perth. And C. Dr. Rosa Jalal from Jakarta. Anyone want to answer that? Yes.
The first is C, Dr. Rosa.
C. He says Dr. Rosa Jalal.
That's correct. My favorite,
Please.
I don't like dentists. I'm always completely stressed out. And when I come to Jakarta, even when I don't need to see a dentist, I go and see Dr. Rosa because she's so beautiful. So I make up stories like this, so that I spend more time there.
Thank you for that. Very honest.
Congratulations to all the winners. We invite you to the stage to claim your prize, which is a picture with the president.
One by one.
Yes.
Di tengah, silakan. Mana Pak? Di tengah.
The cameraman is ready.
This is supposed to be a family picture, so.
One.
Go ahead. Does somebody have a mask? Oh.
Thank you. Next person can come to the stage to take
Maybe we can zoom on the light a little bit.
Tengah. Alright, this one again, right? This is supposed to be a family life picture. Okay.
Once again, congratulations to all the winners. You may head back to your seats.
Now, on behalf of FPCI, we would like to present President Ramos Horta with our token of appreciation and proceed with the gift exchange. And President Ramos Horta also has a gift to FPCI.
A book on the jeral, This is a copy of the Declaration on Human Fraternity that was drafted, signed by His Holiness the Pope and the Grand Imam Al-Azhar, Cairo. There is an international award created in 2019, and there was a jury, and I was a member of the second jury, and I remember we made a commitment with His Holiness and Grand Imam to continue to promote the Declaration on Human Fraternity. In Timor-Leste, our parliament already passed a resolution unanimously adopting the Human Fraternity Declaration as a national document, and then eventually it will be adapted into school curriculum.
Thank you very much.
And the other. So, TAIS, Timorese, recently it got UNESCO recognition as intangible heritage of humanity. So, by Timorese TAIS, is going to be very expensive in the future. So, you have a chance to buy now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Everybody, please give a big round of applause. Thank you, President Ramos Horta.
Now, in FPCI's tradition, we always do an Indonesian-style pantun, or a traditional poem for all of our foreign friends. Now, on this occasion, our FPCI chapter students from all over for you, Mr. President, that they would like to share. Please enjoy.
Jalan-jalan ke kota diri.
Cicipi kuliner lokal, namanya tukir.
Timor-Leste sebagai keluarga sendiri.
Persaudaraan semua barat dan rupiah. Noble Lord, indeed He is. Brings joy to everyone He meets. A brave man comes from the east, working day and night to establish peace.
Presiden Timor-Leste Ramos Horta. Cakep.
Dengan kacamata hitam, dia naik Vespa.
Cakep.
Terima kasih atas kunjungannya.
Obrigada dan sampai jumpa.
Luar biasa.
Wow, what really good. Thank you, FPCI University chapters, for a great contribution to today's event.
We would like to once again thank President José Ramos Horta for your time, and with that, we invite everyone to please stand up and send off Mr. President with a big round of applause.